I've no doubt that a number of you watching this video will have faced an arduous journey to watch your team play football. As a Hull City fan, I've been as far north as Tynecastle in Edinburgh for a pre-season against Hearts, and then all the way down to the south coast, to Portsmouth, Southampton, Brighton and Bournemouth, and I've even departed this island to witness the Tigers in action in Albufeira for a pre-season friendly against Sunderland, just to witness Fraser Campbell put 4 goals past us. And in spite of it all, trips to Ipswich and Norwich still always feel like the biggest challenge. However, my escapades following the mighty Tigers, even over the seas, are child's play compared to some of the away days that we're going to be taking a look at in today's video. Now, I have chosen the word remote for the title of today's video, the dictionary definition of which reads, situated far from the main centres of population, distant. There are differing ways then in which one could define the so-called remoteness of a football stadium, and there are also differing interpretations of what does and doesn't constitute a football stadium. Is it the ground that is furthest from any major cities, the furthest from any continental mainland, or just the hardest to reach? Well, I've gone for a combination of all three, featuring inclusions that would meet each of those descriptions, for your viewing pleasure. And if you feel suitably pleased by the end of this video, feel free to smash the like button and subscribe to the only YouTube channel that cares this much about football stadiums in the middle of nowhere. As for what is and isn't a stadium, I'm prepared to be quite relaxed with regards to capacity and fixed seating, but I am aiming for more than just a field or a couple of chalk goalposts drawn up in a wall in Tristan da Cunha. If there was a football stadium in Tristan da Cunha, I assure you it would have featured, for obvious reasons, but unfortunately there is not. Before we begin the 7 proper, a quick look at some honourable mentions. This is the float at Marina Bay in Singapore, which is no doubt an unusual and fascinating setting for a football stadium, but it is located in a very built-up part of Singapore, so it doesn't quite make the cut. Elsewhere, we have the beautiful Svangaskarv Stadium, formerly the permanent home ground of the Faroe Islands national team, Tuimada Stadium in the Russian city of Yakutsk, which is the coldest large city in the world, the controversial Estadio Daniel Alcides Carrion in Peru, which is the highest football stadium on earth, and finally, the Nuevo Estadio Silvestre Carrillo in Tenerife, which, well, just look at it. Those are just some honourable mentions to whet your appetite, but assuming you have been suitably seduced and are now dying with thirst for yet more remote football stadia stimuli, we shall begin the countdown of my top 7. Here are 7 of the world's most remote football stadiums. Harsteinsvolle. Starting this 7 with a stadium I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce, I offer my sincere apologies to our small but brilliant community of Icelandic subscribers for my extraordinary ignorance, though I'm sure this won't be the first time I mispronounce something in this video or even in this segment. Harsteinsvolle is located here on the island of Heimai, around 4 miles off the coast of Iceland. Heimai, which literally translates as home island, is the largest of the Icelandic islands, in terms of both area and population. Heimai is still only 13.4 kilometres squared though, making it roughly 2% the size of the Isle of Man, and much of that land is occupied by the airport and golf course. Whilst the island is only home to around 4,000 to 5,000 people, it has a population of between 8 to 10 million Atlantic puffins. The island's football stadium, Harsteinsvolle, can be dated back to 1912, when Heimai got their first football pitch. It has been renovated twice since then, in 1960 and in 2012, and the ground can now accommodate 2,300 fans, which is more than 50% of the island's total population. That would be equivalent to a football stadium in Great Britain having a capacity in excess of 30 million. Harsteinsvolle is the home of IBV, 3-time Icelandic champions, who currently play in Iceland's second tier, and I think we can all agree that they have a quite beautiful ground. Changlimithang Stadium. Talking of beautiful grounds, I think Changlimithang Stadium in Bhutan is another that firmly meets that description. A sparsely populated landlocked nation tucked away between India and China, Bhutan was formerly known as the happiest nation on earth. Bhutan as a whole is a remote nation, and not just geographically. The only officially Buddhist nation on earth, Bhutan deliberately restricts tourism to try and preserve the nation's culture, something that has become increasingly difficult in the internet age. Far from renowned for their footballing prowess, Bhutan currently rank 187th in the FIFA World Rankings, and the Changlimutang Stadium famously set the scene for the so-called other final in 2002 between Bhutan and Montserrat, who were the lowest ranked national teams in the world at the time. Bhutan won 4-0, up the mighty Dragon Boys. That is their nickname, by the way, and both Bhutan's home and away shirts have big dragons on the front of them. The Changlimutang Stadium is the regular home of the Bhutan national team, and it is without doubt one of the coolest football stadiums that I have ever seen. Opened in 1974 and renovated in 2007, the stadium is built on the site of a decisive battle which brought an end to Bhutan's civil wars and led to the unification of the country in 1885. Based in Bhutan's capital of Thimphu, population 115,000, Changlimutang is Bhutan's only major sports venue, and one of only 6 stadiums in the country with any fixed seating at all. Capable of holding 15,000 fans, Changlimutang Stadium is one of the highest football stadiums in the world at 7,500 feet above sea level. As such, it's also a highly controversial national team stadium, due to the impact that the high altitude has on the human body's ability to absorb oxygen, which gives considerable advantage to the Bhutanese team, who are more accustomed to such conditions. Hennings Vast Stadion. I told you that I was being fairly relaxed with my definition of a stadium, and here is your proof. Hennings Vast Stadion is really more Henningsvær Field, but it is one hell of a setting for a football pitch, whatever you call it. Henningsvær is a small fishing village, spread out across a number of tiny Norwegian islands, making it part of the larger Lofoten archipelago. I'm not saying that the Lofoten archipelago is remote, but it is roughly the same distance from the Norwegian capital of Oslo, almost 600 miles, as where I am now in East Yorkshire. Henningsvær dates back to at least the 1500s, and today the village is home to just over 500 people. The football pitch, or semi-stadium, was virtually unknown to the rest of the world until the rise in drone technology, at which point it went viral due to the surreal images of the vivid green pitch, those crisp white lines set on a canvas of sharp rocky terrain, and the rich blue Norwegian sea. The stadium, and yes, we are calling it a stadium for the purpose of this video, has an official capacity of 900, which isn't bad for a village of only 510 people. It is the home ground of Henning IL, a Norwegian lower league team who compete as what is considered to be the 6th tier of Norwegian football. Is there time for one more photo? Yeah, pretty remote I'd say. Heimai Stadium. In the introduction, I posited one or two different ways in which remote could be interpreted, one of which was the most remote in terms of distance from any continental mainland. Whilst I can't give you anywhere quite as remote as Tristan da Cunha in those terms, I am able to offer up the city of Malé, which is the capital and the largest city in the archipelagic South Asian state of the Maldives. A former British protectorate that gained independence in 1965, the Maldives is the smallest independent country in Asia. Renowned in the West for the crystal clear waters, powder white sand, and luxury resorts scattered throughout the nation's many atolls, far fewer tourists ever stick around for long in the nation's capital of Malé, where the Heimai Stadium is based. This is the Maldives on a map, and this is the capital city of Malé, which roughly 150,000 of the nation's 530,000 strong population call home. The Heimai Stadium, sometimes referred to simply as the National Football Stadium, is therefore the most remote major football stadium in the world, according to many people, in terms of distance from any continental mainland, over 400 miles from mainland Asia. Capable of accommodating 11,850 incredibly passionate Maldivian football fans, the Heimai Stadium is the home of both the Maldives national team, ranked 155th in the FIFA World Rankings, and every single team who compete in the Maldivian Football League system. Ottmar Hitzfeld Stadium. Ottmar Hitzfeld is one of Germany's most decorated football managers, having won multiple Bundesliga titles and the Champions League at both Borussia Dortmund and Bayern Munich. He is also someone who is very celebrated in Switzerland though, having spent all but 3 of his years as a player playing in Switzerland before managing multiple Swiss Super League teams, and finally coaching the national team for 6 years, before his retirement in 2014. To say thank you for his contribution to football in Switzerland, the Swiss have named a stadium after him, though it is not the most accessible. The Ottmar Hitzfeld Stadium is located in the village of Gespon in the Swiss Alps and plays host to the village team, who compete in the lowly Swiss Mountain League. Well, Lowly in terms of the standard of football, not so lowly in terms of, well, you know what I mean. At more than 2,000 metres above sea level, it is believed to be the highest stadium in Europe, and it is inaccessible by road. Yes, to make your way to the Ottmar Hitzfeld Stadium, you'll have to take 2 separate cable cars, and in the winter, the ground is covered in snow and the village becomes a ski run. Over the last 40 years, Gaspon estimate that they have lost over 1,000 footballs down the mountain, despite having netting around the ground. Again, maybe stadium is a bit generous, but the club reckons that they can get a packed out crowd of maybe 40 or 50 fans for a big game, depending on the weather. Hangarro Stadium. Silence to anyone who dares suggest that the Hangarro Stadium isn't a proper stadium when you can very clearly see at least 5 spectators in this one photo alone, and its name literally has the word stadium in it. If that's not conclusive evidence, I'm really not sure what is. The Hangarro Stadium is located in Hangarro, as its name suggests, which is the main town and capital of Easter Island, which is itself a province of Chile. 3,304 people live on Easter Island at the last count, though that was all the way back in 2002, 87% of which lived in Hangarro, making it by far the most populated region on the island. Some estimate that both Easter Island and Hangarro's population could have doubled since then. Best known for the enormous stone carvings known as moai, built by the Rapa Nui people between 1250 and the year 1500, these structures are considered to be a remarkable feat of pre-industrial human engineering. All the work of big stone head-obsessed extraterrestrials with a penchant for South American islands, if you believe the program Ancient Aliens from the History Channel that is now on Netflix. As you can see from this map, Easter Island is incredibly isolated, more than 1,000 miles from any other inhabited island, and more than 2,000 miles from mainland South America, which is why I have ranked it above the Razmi Dandu Stadium, which is admittedly more of a bona fide football stadium. The Hangarro Stadium has a supposed capacity of 1,000, and I can only apologise for not having more pictures of the ground. If I had visited, I promise I would have taken more. CF Rapa Nui are the team that plays at the ground, and they faced Chilean giants Colo Colo in 2009, only losing 4-0. Opmah Stadium. If you thought that the love affair between HITC Sevens and Greenland was over just yet, then you were sorely mistaken. Described by critics as the best love story since Twilight, we are back in the world's largest island for top spots in today's video, with a settlement that I spoke about very briefly in my recent Greenland documentary. Opmah is one of the world's most remote settlements, so the fact that they have what I'm extremely generously describing as a football stadium means that they have to come out on top. Formerly known as Scoresbysund, having been discovered by English whaler and Arctic explorer William Scoresby, the name Opmah means big house dwellers in the Eastern Greenlandic language. The vast majority of Greenlanders live on the island's west coast, and particularly on the southwest coast, where you'll find the capital of Nuuk. This not very good map, showing every settlement in Greenland with more than 200 inhabitants, should give you a decent idea of how isolated Opmah is. Virtually inaccessible for 9 months of a year, when sea ice blocks boats from reaching the port, Opmah is actually the closest settlement in Greenland to Iceland, though it's still around 400 miles away. And in the summer, Air Greenland operate 1 flight a week between Opmah and Reykjavik. Despite its isolation, football has still reached Opmah, which is home to one of Greenland's 16 outdoor football pitches, which, as you can see, has a beautiful artificial turf since grass very rarely grows in Greenland. It is impossible not to notice the catastrophic impact of climate change on a number of the inclusions in this seven, from Opmah, where the heating of the inland ice sheet is forcing polar bears towards human settlements in places such as Opmah, to the citizens of the Maldives directly threatened by these rising sea levels as one of the lowest lying archipelagos on Earth. Anyhow, that is it for today's video, apologies for ending on such a sour note, containing some of the finest potential bucket list inclusions for football fans, as the Yanks would say, or just places to see before you die for those of you unfamiliar with that expression. Perhaps, once COVID is done and dusted, we'll have a big HITC Sevens trip to Bhutan or to Easter Island. We might even come across some ancient alien remains. Thank you all as ever for watching. Please do hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications by just hitting the little bell icon for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on either Twitter or Instagram by the username at HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.